Eddie Jaku was born as Abraham Jacobowitz in Leipzig, Germany in the year 1920. He grew up as a Jewish child in Germany. His father used to tell him, "Abraham, I want you to always remember there is more joy in giving than there is in taking." In 1938, on Kristallnacht, Eddie was beaten by 10 SS soldiers almost to death. He was sent to Buchenwald. He escaped Germany and went to Belgium. When Hitler invaded Belgium, he was placed on a train to go to Auschwitz. He stole a hammer and screwdriver from the platform, and over 9 hours on the train, he managed to unscrew the flashboards of the carriage, and he escaped back to France and Belgium, reunited with his family, which also escaped from Germany. But in 1943, the Gestapo discovered the hiding place of the family, and they put them all on a train to Auschwitz. Dr. Mengele sent both of his parents to the gas chambers immediately. Eddie was sent to work. He was one of the few Jews who managed to escape the death camp, but then he was shot in the forest by a Polish farmer. He realized he had no choice but to return. He returned back to Auschwitz. A Jewish doctor took the bullet out of his calf, and then he was placed on the death march in January 1945. After a few days with no food and no water, Eddie realized he will not be able to continue, and if you stopped, you got a bullet in your head. He noticed a ditch. He managed to escape into the ditch, and he survived in the ditch for 6 months on raw snails. He was poisoned by the water flowing through a nearby creek. He couldn't stand anymore. He was deathly ill. He crawled to the nearby road, hoping that a Nazi soldier would detect him, shoot him, and take him out of his misery. But he saw an American tank. And the US soldiers lifted him up, put him in a blanket, sent him into the hospital. They didn't think he would survive, but he did. 6 weeks later, he was out of the hospital. He bought a ticket to go back to Brussels, hoping maybe somebody of his family survived. He found his sister Henny. She also survived Auschwitz. A few months later, he met another young Jewish woman, a survivor, by the name of Flora. They got married. They relocated to Sydney, Australia. In 1950, their first child was born. And Eddie describes how till then he was bitter and angry and depressed. But when his child was born, my happiness came back to me in abundance, and I made a decision. I'm going to live a happy life full of gratitude and kindness. I'm going to be polite and sensitive and compassionate and empathetic, and I'm going to help bring kindness to the world. Last year, Eddie celebrated his 100th birthday. And following that birthday, he decided it's time to write a book. He published his first book, and he titled it The Happiest Man on Earth. It became an international bestseller. One story of that book touched me so deeply. It was shortly after the Holocaust. He's just lost most of his family. He was living in a flat in Belgium, and he opens up a newspaper, and he reads about 2 Jewish girls who tried to commit suicide. They jumped off a bridge in Brussels. They tried to fall on a barge, but instead they fell into the water. They survived. They were arrested, and they were put into a mental hospital. Eddie decided, I have to help these 2 girls. And despite the fact that he had nothing, literally, he lost everything or almost everything, he went to the hospital. The conditions were appalling, and he met these 2 girls, and he realized they are perfectly normal and balanced, intelligent and wonderful people. But they lost their entire family. They have been in Auschwitz and Birkenau. Everybody was murdered, and they simply did not want to live. They did not have the stamina, the desire to continue to live, so they decided to take their lives. And he met with the head of the hospital. He says, these girls don't belong here. Let me take care of them. Let me nurture them back to health. Besides that, the conditions here are horrific for anybody. If you come in normal, he said, you go out 3 months later mad. The guy let him take them. He took them to his flat where his sister was as well. And he encouraged them. He fed them and he nurtured them. And being also a survivor of Auschwitz, he can empathize with them. And finally, he managed to give them back that hope and that vigor and that inner fortitude and resilience they needed. And they went on to marry Jewish husbands and build beautiful families, and he maintained a connection with them. And Eddie writes, then I finally managed to experience what my father told me as a youth. Abraham, there's much more joy in giving than there is in taking. And when I saw these two beautiful girls come back to life, I realized that even in the depths of darkness, you can see miracles. And if you don't see miracles, you can become the miracle. And you can create the miracle by giving life and hope and kindling a flame of love and faith in the heart of darkness. Just a few weeks ago, Abraham Jacobowitz, Eddie Jaku, returned his soul to its maker. October 12, 2021, 6 Cheshvan 5782. This 101-year-old hero of the Jewish people, hero of the world, passed away in Sydney. But Eddie, the flame that you and your generation kindled in the midst of the deepest darkness will continue to burn forever and inspire us for eternity. Thank you. Happy Chanukah.